Howdy folks, Jambareeqi here. Guess what? I've reached 5,000 subscribers, a huge milestone for me as a YouTuber. I'm incredibly grateful for every single subscriber. You ignite the burning passion inside of me. So, how am I going to celebrate this achievement? Well, with the advent release of Pixar's Cars 3, what better time to do a double review of the Cars movies, starting with the first Cars. In Cars, a hotshot race car called Lightning McQueen, voiced by Owen Wilson, is on his way to California to attend a major racing tournament. Unfortunately, he accidentally slides out of the truck assigned to travel him there. McQueen tries to make it to California on his own at great speed, only to be chased down by a police sheriff. McQueen mistakes the sheriff's banging exhaust pipe for gunfire and starts driving even faster, only to end up crashing into a nearby town and ruining their road. The town, which is called Radiator Springs, decides to punish McQueen by forcing him to fix their road. While McQueen stays in Radiator Springs during his sentence, he befriends its local residents, including the beautiful Porsche Sally, voiced by Bonnie Hunt, who he starts having the hots for, and the dopey but happy-go-lucky Mater, who he develops a best friendship with. McQueen also discovers that the head of the town, Doc Hudson, voiced by Paul Newman, used to be a highly acclaimed racing car, but the Doc wants nothing to do with his past. This movie was a very personal project for its head director / co-writer, John Lasseter. The film's values, philosophies, and overall story are heavily inspired by a road trip that Lasseter took with his family on Route 66. McQueen's fast-paced racing career is a metaphor for Lasseter's own time-consuming animation career, and McQueen's experience in Radiator Springs represents how this family road trip changed Lasseter's own outlook on life. Interestingly too, the sheriff of Radiator Springs is voiced by journalist Michael Wallace, author of a book on Route 66. However, even though the film does come from a very personal place for the director, it's actually considered to be Pixar's first disappointment after a series of back-to-back hits. While I will agree that Cars is quite underwhelming when compared to Pixar's other efforts, I can't find myself loathing it as much as everyone else does. Keep in mind, I've watched 3 of the Cars Life films, a series of Cars mockbusters designed to piggyback on the success of Pixar's Cars. Each Cars Life movie is a slog to get through. They're all poorly animated, star aggravatingly annoying characters, plus mainly consist of scenes dedicated to characters talking and talking and talking about what's happening, instead of showing what's happening. After watching the Cars Life films, I find Pixar's Cars to be much more tolerable. That's the thing, if you watch enough bottom-of-the-barrel schlock, then you start appreciating and enjoying passably okay films a bit more than you probably would. Don't get me wrong though, Cars has its fair share of problems that I can't ignore. While I admire Lasseter for making something very personal to him, I can't say that this level of intimate authorship can make up for Cars' many flaws. Beginning with the initial premise, using cars to tell the film's story does feel unnecessary, because you could tell this tale just as easily with humans. The film is set in a world that's completely identical to our own, so it's hard to shake off how unjustified the film's talking living cars concept is, especially in the medium of animation, where anything is possible. With other Pixar films, the inanimate objects chosen to be brought to life and the animals picked to talk feel warranted and justified, as they've already got their own little worlds divided from our own. The fish's world in the ocean of Finding Nemo is uniquely theirs, and the pint-sized secretive community in the Toy Story films are especially for the toys to experience. Pixar's decision to place cars in our world is an inherently distracting part of the movie, and feels like a novelty more than a clever idea. Maybe the film could have put the cars in a more fantastical universe of their own, because humanizing their world, especially to this extent, just begs the question, why are these cars not humans? Then we have the story itself, which is your run-of-the-mill tale of a cocky city boy learning to be more humble through the charms of the countryside. Right from the start, it's easy to predict where the film is going with its character arcs, overall message, and story progression. I think this is the main reason why people feel turned off by Cars, and why it's considered to be Pixar's most bland effort. As audiences feel like they've experienced these story beats before. Another problem with the movie, for me especially, is the character of Lightning McQueen. I get that the movie wants to tell the story of an arrogant city slicker evolving into a more down-to-earth guy, but the execution is pretty terrible. Characters like this need to get us invested in their arcs. We need to care about their positive progression and believe that they can improve. The issue is that Lightning McQueen starts off as a downright repulsive and highly unlikable character. He's a shallow, spiteful, egocentric, phony, fame-hungry, ungrateful, and all-round unpleasant car. There's nothing funny, likable, redeemable, or charming about Lightning McQueen when we first meet him. Sure, he's passionate about racing, but he's mainly interested in it because of the fame he'll be rewarded with. Later on in the film, when Lightning becomes enchanted by Radiator Springs and starts doing admirable things for its residents, it feels forced and contrived. It's like Lightning is only becoming the good guy because we've hit a certain mark in the film's running time and the story feels obligated to change his personality. When Lightning shifts his attitude later on in the film, I don't believe that this is the same character. There's no natural progression in his character arc. Because the film introduces him as such an over-the-top horrible guy, it's hard to be convinced that he has a good side underneath. Heck, you could argue that Lightning only starts doing nice things just to impress Sally, so he can get more intimate with her. I'm more convinced that he's playing nice guy to win over Sally than I am to believe that he's been a swell car all along deep down. I mean, look at Kuzco in The Emperor's New Groove. Not only does the film find the humor in Kuzco's over-pampered and egocentric personality at the start, thus making him funny enough to care about, but the film also gives subtle hints towards Kuzco's hidden conscience, helping us to believe his eventual progression into being a well-rounded good guy later on. So why do I find myself not hating this movie as much as everyone else when I have all these problems with it? Well, there's a saving grace to the movie, and that's Radiator Springs itself. There really is something both charming and tragic about the idea of a tiny community of failed businesses that strikes a chord with me. Yes, the residents of Radiator Springs aren't very interesting, they're very one-dimensional, they're caricatures, but there is something there to them. They're really passionate about the things they sell and good customer service. They clearly don't run their small shops just for the money, because if they did, then they would have moved away by now. They all love the countryside and feel like their quaint little stores belong in this quiet town. While Sally is the spirit and strength of Radiator Springs, I really do love how passionate she is about keeping Radiator Springs alive and restoring it to its heyday. She could easily return home to a wealthy life in California, but she finds more substance and satisfaction in giving life to this old-fashioned town. Even though most of the residents of Radiator Springs aren't that interesting as characters, it's what they represent that I resonate with. As someone who just wants to turn his hobby into a living, takes great pleasure from entertaining other people, and feels like a little fish in this big pond called YouTube, I can't help but connect with the dedicated cars of Radiator Springs and their little niche shops lost in obscurity. Call me sentimental, but even mediocre and flawed films can speak to someone's soul. Although, I will admit that it's kind of dickish that the residents of Radiator Springs don't inform the authorities where McQueen is right away. Sure, he deserves to be punished for ruining their road, but it's irresponsible to hide McQueen from higher powers, his employers, and potential loved ones. Yes, it's implied that McQueen doesn't seem to have friends, but these country cars don't know that. On the plus side though, Radiator Springs itself is rather beautiful. When Sally and Lightning go for a drive, the movie slows down and lets us really soak in the warm nature of this forgotten American countryside area. This scene is the heart of the movie, made even more poignant by Lightning's observation of how cars are driving directly past a place of beauty. This one shot also speaks volumes for Pixar themselves, showing how they went from primitively rendered plastic toys to a highly detailed illustration of nature's depth and beauty. So, what do I think about the film's animation? It's passable stuff, but characters mainly express themselves through their faces. Much like the Cars Live films, the problem is that the animators let the fact that the characters are cars hinder their imagination. The cars aren't very flexible and have very restrained bodies. Yes, cars are inherently stern and solid vehicles, but that doesn't mean that they can't be given a stretch or bounce to their movement when turned into animated characters. Look at Benny in Who Framed Roger Rabbit. His animation has so much life to it because the animators didn't surrender to the Cars' natural limitation, but embraced the principles of animation instead. Pixar's Cars is certainly better looking and more expressive than the Cars Life movies, but that's far from a compliment. The movie also includes original songs by country singer Brad Paisley, and to be honest, I hardly ever noticed them. If you asked me to recall one, I'd struggle to remember what they sound like and how their lyrics go. They're just generic country tracks, which certainly fit the countryside atmosphere, but don't leave a lasting impact. Don't get me wrong, Brad Paisley has a nice singing voice, but his songs are just too vanilla to remember. Before I conclude my thoughts on Cars, there's one more thing that makes me have a soft spot for this movie. You see, it was the last film that longtime Pixar crew member Joe Ranft was involved in before he sadly passed away in a car crash. Ranft served as the film's co-writer and co-director. He was heavily involved with many stages of the film. Joe has always been a huge inspiration to me. He had this high energy and limitless drive to create stories. The fact that he's voiced so many memorable Pixar characters also adds weight to his involvement with the studio. Cars features a little memorial for Joe in its end credits. It always makes me tear up and feel sad that a legend is no longer with us. Oh, and this shot of John Lasseter holding up a picture of Ranft in the music video for Brad Paisley's When I Get Where I'm Going breaks my heart every time. To conclude, Cars is a very generic and run-of-the-mill kind of animated movie, made even worse by its despicable lead character and his phony development. But I just can't hate it as much as everyone else does. It's got this relaxing slice of life flow, and there's a charm to Radiator Springs. I understand the hate, I really do, but as someone who's had to sit through something much worse like the Cars Life movies, Pixar's Cars is kind of easy to get through, and it does have a very chill, relaxed atmosphere to it that makes me feel kind of uplifted. So, that was my thoughts on the first Cars movie, but what about the sequel? In Cars 2, Lightning McQueen enters a world racing tournament, and he invites his friends from Radiator Springs to be his crew. While traveling, Mate to the tow truck gets mistaken as a spy by field agents Finn McMissile and Holly Schiffwell, and he ends up in the middle of a conspiracy. You see, old-fashioned cars running on gasoline want to frame progressive environmentally friendly energy as useless, so they rig races in the World Tournament to make cars think that modern alternative energy is dangerous. While Cars is seen as Pixar's first disappointment, Cars 2 is considered by many to be Pixar's worst movie. I can honestly see why, and the reason can mainly be planted on one aspect: Mater himself. The issue is that Mater wasn't designed to be a protagonist for the Cars franchise. In the first movie, Mater was just the supporting comic relief, serving as this kooky mascot for Radiator Springs. His involvement in the first film was spread out in small doses, so I didn't get sick of him. There was a charm to his childlike naivety that I found endearing. But in this sequel, Mater is pushed into the role of lead hero, and that is what kills the movie for me. With Mater now in the position of the film's star, his personality is amped up to 11. He's made to be more obnoxious, more foolish, more rude, and more loud. It's really grating putting up with him because he never shuts up and he's always being an arse. Everything in this movie is designed to cater to making Mater's ignorance drive the comedy, and this level of contrivance is aggravatingly patronizing. This is most notable with the characters of Finn and Holly, who are forced to ignore Mater's foolish remarks and dumb behavior just so they can keep mistaking him as a spy. Sure, they excuse his idiocy with the assumption that he's putting on an act, but there's only so long I can buy Finn and Holly's presumption. These are two highly professional and intelligent spies. Surely they'd catch on to Mater after 5 minutes and realize he's not really an agent. I'm sorry, but the premise of Mater being mistaken as a field agent is way too far-fetched for me to buy. The lengths Finn goes to defend Mater's stupid behavior as clever and tactical is just embarrassing. Yes, the movie tries to make Mater seem surprisingly smart by having him be knowledgeable about cars. Why? Because tow trucks pick up a lot of cars. Yes, tow trucks do pick up a lot of cars, but they don't fix them. Mater is not a mechanic, so his insight into the intricacies of cars feels contrived and out of left field. What makes things worse is that the movie has the audacity to attempt to make us sympathize with Mater. You see, Mater acts like a total ass in the film, and when Lightning scolds him for his poor behaviour, the film frames McQueen as the bad guy, implying that he's being too mean. This happens in 2 occasions, and I'm going to explain why I kind of sided with McQueen on both scenarios. Firstly, when Mater accompanies Lightning to a fancy shindig for race cars in Japan, Mater acts like a rude, loud-mouthed ignoramus. Lightning scolds Mater for his poor behaviour and says that he needs to change the way he acts in this party. You know what? Mater should learn to adapt to his new environment and follow common social etiquette. It's called being polite and good-mannered. Social skills we're taught at a young age. Yes, McQueen's words of "you shouldn't be yourself at this party" are poorly chosen. I'll be the first to admit that. But I get where he's coming from. Mater needs to behave himself and respect his hosts. In the second situation, Mater serves as Lightning's crew chief during a race in Tokyo. He gets distracted by the spy action he's caught between, and this means that Lightning mistakes Mater's chitter-chatter with the spies as serious instructions during the race. So McQueen kicks Mater off the crew and tells reporters that he made a mistake. Yes, again, McQueen's choice of words are harsh, but he's in the right. Mater wasn't experienced enough to be a crew chief in the first place, so hiring him was a bad idea. Also, the fact that Mater stays on the line while going off to do his own thing with the spies is way too stupid and inconsiderate, even for Mater standards. It's hard to believe that Mater is shocked when McQueen says that Mater's commentary on the spy action misled him and put his career in jeopardy. You know what really pisses me off though? The reason why McQueen has been shamed for scolding Mater for being an ass in public is because the movie wants to force in this message about letting other people be themselves. Movie? There is a fine line between letting people freely express themselves and giving people the entitled right to act like rude, inconsiderate assholes without consequences. I swear that the film only makes McQueen have a poor choice of words when telling off Mater is just so it can judge him as the bad guy, make Mater seem like a victim, and hammer in its message about being yourself. Anyway, this movie has also been criticised for other things besides its rubbish comedy and annoying star. It's also been scolded for being too on the nose about its promotion of alternative energy and cartoony villainising of fossil fuel companies. But here's the interesting thing, the movie's environmental message wasn't actually intentional. Director John Lasseter chose the idea of alternative energy versus fossil fuels for the story because he thought it to be a strong conflict for cars to face as characters. That's right, apparently Lasseter didn't actually set out to make any kind of environmentalist message. So, fascinatingly, the film's decision to pit these energy sources against each other results in a preachy message about choosing alternative energy over gas. Keep in mind as well, I'm an environmentalist myself, but I think that eco-friendly practice should be explained carefully to the public rather than aggressively shoved down audiences' throats. Thanks to its over-the-top cartoony take on the energy source debate, Cars 2 has accidentally ended up leaving behind a preachy message, and because it's not interested in environmentalist values, it doesn't go out of its way to explain why alternative energy is a good idea. That's the thing about filmmaking. You have to be careful about every creative decision you make, or you could end up implying something unintentional. Now, of course, like with the first movie, Cars 2 is telling a story that could be told with humans. You could easily replace Finn McMissile with James Bond and make an animated Bond movie about an oil company rigging races to boycott alternative energy. Having cars as the characters doesn't change that much. However, despite this, the movie does give us plenty of fun spy action. When Finn is on his own and on the job, it's pretty cool seeing him sneak around, go undercover and take on bad guys. Plus, the movie does end with this crazy climax involving thrilling car chases, the Big Ben, a timed bomb, and the Queen of England herself. Yeah, it's a tad over the top, but it's kind of fun as it gets sillier and sillier as it goes along. Now, I'll admit that I didn't find the film's racing sequences to be that engaging. Sure, it's mainly because I'm not that into car racing or sports in general, but a good film can make people invested in things they're not usually into. Yeah, the movie is more about the spy comedy than the racing, but it's still a part of the film nonetheless. I will admit that I was more impressed by the pretty international backgrounds for these races. These are some seriously gorgeously rendered backdrops, especially Italy, which is downright beautiful to look at. To conclude, Cars 2 is pretty much the weakest film I've seen from Pixar, mainly thanks to Mater, but on second viewing there were little things that I noticed that I liked, including the pretty international backdrops during the races and the fun spy action. Yes, the movie is obnoxiously bad, but there's little things there to make up for Mater's annoying habits. So, those were my thoughts on both of the Cars movies. What do you think of the Cars films? Let me know in the comment section below. Again, a huge thank you to everyone that subscribed to my channel and helped me to achieve the milestone of 5,000 subscribers. It means so much to me. If you enjoyed this double review, then please consider supporting me on my Patreon. With enough sponsors on my Patreon, I could start doing this YouTube channel as a full-time job, which means that I could start releasing videos much more consistently through a strict weekly schedule. Imagine if I could start releasing episodes of Puppet Panic and Jambareeqi reviews every single week. And feel free to go over to my official website jambareeqi.com to read written reviews of films I've not talked about on my YouTube channel. If you guys want to help me reach 6,000 subscribers, then the best thing you can do is share my channel around with friends. The more people check out my channel, the more likely they're going to subscribe, if they like my stuff. Cheerio, folks.